Welcome back to the show. Friday, April 16. I'm your host, Ryan Hulsebos, and you are watching or listening to Goal Line Extended, a new show that debuted just under a month ago out of the Lacrosse Flash Podcast Network. We are glad that you are here, hopefully enjoying the show. And if you are, make sure that you are subscribed, following our accounts, and obviously Lacrosse Flash as well for all the latest news and analysis. Joining me next is one of the most electrifying young players in the game of lacrosse right now. As a redshirt junior in 2019, he was the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year and a first-team All-American as he went on to set Big Ten records in points and NCAA records in assists. The first overall pick of the 2020 PLL College Draft and the unofficial 2020 Rookie of the Year during the PLL bubble in Utah, all while creating some highlight reel plays. Joining me now, Archer's attackman, Grant Ament. Grant, what's going on, man? Welcome to the show.
That was a heck of an intro. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Always got to put in the big intros there whenever we're bringing people on. Hey, a great rookie season that you put together there in 2020. Probably not the year that you exactly envisioned. Obviously, with COVID, we had the bubble tournament rather than the full scheduled slate that we're going to see here in 2021. But in terms of your production on the field, you were. We were expecting big things, but you were absolutely unbelievable, my guy. Like I said, the league didn't officially announce like a rookie of the tournament, but unofficially we will hand you that nod up there among the league leaders in points and assists, setting that bar high for the rest of the league to follow. But you seemed to fit in perfectly with Will Manny, Marcus Holman, Tom Schreiber, the rest of that offense, Ryan Ambler, Christian Mazzone, in what was fairly a short preparation for a tournament style season that you probably haven't played in since your high school days. What was that tournament experience like, especially with it coming in your first season in the league?
Yeah, it was a phenomenal experience for me. As you said, I think I kind of was able to plug in decently well for the Archers in general, just with their style of play. And it just translated very easily for me in terms of, the type of offense that I played in college. And then, when you suit up alongside those guys, with Will, Marcus, Tom, Ryan, Maz, but I mean, even last year, Courier, McKay, all of these guys, Sankey, they're all just so talented. And, I definitely am one of those players that, when I'm surrounded by better players and unbelievable talent, I think I'm able to kind of elevate my game to their standards. And I also think I just have more fun. It's a great brand of lacrosse that we play. And it's just a lot of fun to be a part of. And, being a part of that locker room in my rookie year, I couldn't be more thankful for the off the field things and, the leadership of the Archers in Tom, Rat and Marcus. Those are three of the best leaders that I've ever played with. And, they're teaching me much more than, I expected to get out of year one in terms of off the field stuff too.
That jump up to the pro game, we watched you seamlessly make that leap, something that not everyone is able to do, not just in lacrosse. We see it in almost every sport. Again, you made it look fairly easy. How did you manage to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to that, right? The leadership in the locker room, the leadership that I was playing with. When you have a guy like Tom Schreiber just telling you, "Hey, man, you belong here. Play like it." That he's one of those guys that your confidence points increase, or if not double. When you have that, and same with Marcus, same with Scott, same with Will. Same with these guys. I think. The veterans on this team just did a great job of creating a locker room where I felt comfortable from day one. And, you don't see that a lot throughout lacrosse, but also in sports, right? You got to earn your way kind of normally. And, but these guys kind of just welcomed me with open arms. And I think it just allowed me to play the way I'm capable of. And it also allowed me to play with a little bit of confidence, knowing that, all right, I don't know these guys that well, but I know they have my back. So, that side of things mentally is one of the biggest things that you got to get by as a rookie, because, you are nervous the first few games. Like I'll be lying if I said I wasn't, but, when you've got guys that are just in your corner and supporting you, it makes it really, really easy.
Getting comfortable, getting settled in here in the PLL. No-look passes in overtime, cartwheels after goals, making the game look easy, and having fun while doing it, as you said. Huge 2020 for you. And now you're coming into this 2021 season. We had the schedule drop earlier this week, as we're now about a month and a half out from opening weekend. But for you as a PA guy, you and your team are going to have to get to the semifinals if you want that hometown game in Philly. But looking at how these games are laid out, where are you most looking forward to playing? And you're playing each team once, and then the Chaos and Whipsnakes a second time in Week 8, the two teams that played in the 2020 championship game. Where are you most excited to play, and which games are you guys circling heading into the season?
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of pro lacrosse that I love, and you see it a little bit in this college season, right? The ACC Big Ten gauntlet, right?
That's what we've been calling it. That's what we've been calling it.
You know, like that's what pro lacrosse is, right? There's no safe lead. There's no, especially with the 2-point arc, how quickly the field's a little bit shorter, the game's a little faster, right? There's no comfortable lead, but two, it's pretty hard to get a comfortable lead because these guys are so good. So, all in all, I think we are just excited as a team to just have a full summer. I haven't had a season yet, right? I haven't had a true pro season. So I'm really excited for just the experience, right? To, get to travel a little bit, but also get to go through the ebbs and flows of the season, because I think in the tournament setup, it's a sprint, right? It's not a marathon, but a long-term season, right? There's more structure, there's strategy, there's a little bit more that goes into it. That I think actually bodes better into our favor. But I think it bodes well just to anybody. I mean, like, you ask any guy in the league, like, nobody felt great going into those playoffs because, you play 6 games or 5 games, like back to back to back. And, you're not getting the best product on the field. So I think we're all excited for it. But, you mentioned it, the Whips and the Chaos, we played them twice and we lost. Those are the 2 teams we lost to last year. So, in terms of, games that I have circled, I would say those, but you can make a storyline about any team that we play. Water Dogs playing against Sabia, the Atlas, always a good one, getting to compete against Tucker Durkin. It's Redwoods now, they're pretty freaking good. Like the show goes on, and being able to have those connections on the other side of the ball, it makes it a little bit more fun, makes you play with a little bit more of an edge. But, all in all, I think really just excited for the opportunity to just get to compete and get to play with fans a full summer and feel like a pro athlete again.
There's so much talent in this league. And really, I mean, we're still looking at the player pool for the waiver period. And it's like you could probably make another full team out of all these guys that are still unsigned. And then we look at the schedule. It's laid out in a way where there are 5 games over the 3-day weekend, a game on Friday, 2 on Saturday, and then 2 on Sunday, where those teams on Friday play again. You look back now on that 2020 tournament. How do you see your team's success? As you're saying, you only lost 2 games, obviously losing in that semifinal, but how do you see your team's success over that condensed season carrying over into this season, where your team, like the other 7 teams, will play 2 games over the same weekend twice? For your team, week 4 in Long Island, and then the last weekend of the season, week 8 in Albany.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely, it helped us that we were able to play such condensed times, but I think it's going to be up to each guy individually to create a strategy, right? We don't have practice during the week or anything like that, so it's hard to be strategic in that regard. But I do think that playing in that tournament style last year will prepare guys. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to, we're going to need to be smart on those Friday nights after the game, prioritize recovery. And then Saturday, probably get in. We'll probably do a practice or a walkthrough with some cleanup with stuff. And then it's going to be mostly dedicated to recovery. So, I learned very quickly, especially in the tournament play, you're only as good as you feel. So, that's going to be priority number 1. And then, obviously as time goes on, I think we'll be able to figure it out a little bit more. But yeah, that puts a little wrinkle in things in terms of strategy and in terms of the way that we're, approaching the game. But, all in all, I think the biggest thing that it comes down to is if we have buy-in from every guy that we have suiting up for us in terms of, their physical nature and making sure they feel good on game day, I'm pretty confident in what we can, put in terms of a product on the field.
We are all looking forward to this 2021 season. A lot of lacrosse coming our way. For your team, it starts Saturday night, June 5th at 7:45 Eastern at Gillette Stadium against this new-look Atlas team in the pick after you in last year's college draft, Brian Costabile. So we're all looking forward to that one. Grant, your head coach, Chris Bates, he's been pretty active here over this offseason. It's not Ben Rubier active or Sean Quirk active. Obviously, Quirk having a busy offseason as the expansion head coach, but Chris Bates has been making some moves so far this offseason, and it started with the trade that saw your team acquire attackman Connor Fields, another weapon on offense that we are all excited to see suit up in orange and play alongside yourself and the other pieces on this team, especially on this offense. How does he fit in with what you guys are trying to do offensively, and what excites you most about getting a chance to play with a guy like him?
Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, obviously the trade was done through Ian McKay, and Ian and I roomed together for the tournament last year and got to know each other before the tournament. So would be wrong of me to not, thank him for, all of his efforts towards the Archers, and also just his friendship with me. It's going to be a little weird not having him off the field more so than on the field, because he's such a character. But in terms of Connor, I mean, there's just not a whole lot that he can't do. He can play with the ball on a stick. He can play in a 2-man. He can play off ball. He can, find different ways. He's extremely creative, which, I love, because I don't think it's unnecessarily creative. I think he just understands the angles and the nuances with his stick. And as a fan of the game first myself, that's going to be pretty fun to play with and learn from. Then again, like we look at this and, he just creates kind of a whole nother realm of opportunities for us because of his versatility and his ability to not only break down defenders, but, get creative. He's obviously great in the box game and has, like I said, the 2-man kind of ability on that lefty wing, which with our pairs offense, I mean, that'll fit in really, really well. And all in all, everybody kind of, talks about last year, and, he will be the first one to say, I wasn't as productive as I was the year before and all this stuff. But I mean, my thoughts are, if you don't think that kid's coming out with a chip on his shoulder, ready to go, I mean, he was the best attackman in the league, 2 years ago. So, arguably, I mean, obviously Rambo got voted number 1, but I mean, Fields was doing some stupid stuff on the field, and, to be able to suit up alongside one of those guys, a guy like that, and add him to our arsenal. Yeah, there's that. I mean, you can see it in my face, but I think all in all, he just creates so much for us, and it'll be a huge add-in. And we've already been on the phone a few times, and just trying to get to know each other a little bit before. But hopefully once we get there, we get the chemistry flowing in training camp, and then we can put it on the field week 1.
We're all very excited to see what Fields brings to this Archers offense here in 2021 and going forward. And then you bring up Ian McKay. We talked to Coach Towers early in the week. He's very excited to have Ian McKay join his team. Obviously, as you said, your roommate there during the PLL bubble. You talked about the importance of kind of that veteran leadership. Losing Ian McKay, definitely a big loss there for your team. Coach Bates, though, pretty quiet then following that trade, but then made a few splashes in the entry draft and during the waiver period. He used 2 of his entry draft selections, including his first pick at 2nd overall, to bolster up your team's defense. And then he also added Latrell Harris and Nick Washuta to add some depth on the other end in waivers as well. But then on the offensive end, midfielder Ryan McNamara was available in the 2nd round, and Coach Bates grabbed him, a natural scorer and finisher. He had 5 goals in the MLL bubble a year ago, and then attackman Nate Solomon picked up and brought in through the waivers. What kind of impact do you expect these 2 guys to make in joining this already loaded Archers offense?
Yeah, I mean, our mentality is the more firepower, the better. And so, we're excited to be able to add those guys. I think Ryan is a very underrated player. He can shoot the crap out of the ball. He can dodge, he can break down. I've been watching him kind of since his Marquette days. And, he definitely is one of those guys that kind of similar to Connor, like he can do it all. He can play a role, and He's great. And then Nate and I played together in the Under Armour All-American game when we were seniors in high school. So got to know him briefly there, but, obviously had a great career at Syracuse and was, I believe, a 4-time starter at Syracuse, which not many people say that they can do. So, he's definitely an accomplished player. So, yeah, I mean, we're going to be going to training camp definitely a little bit heavy on the offensive end and defensive end for that regard. I mean, I think you kind of briefed over it, but we just picked up probably the best D guy in the league in Graham. So, talking to Rob Pennell about him because they matched up together in the World Games and a little bit in the MLL. He was just like, that's a legit pull right there. And that's not, I think we already have 2 legit pulls in Matt and in Eli. So, we've got 2 really good guys, and to add a third, and then, to add Warren, and, we just basically just added just a lot more talent in general. And I think Coach Bates did a phenomenal job with it. Obviously I texted Graham when he got picked up. I was like, I'm really happy we're not going to be going against each other every week. And his response, I think, was something along the lines of, don't worry, dude, we still have a week of training camp.
I was about to say, you're not going against him every weekend. You're going to probably be going up against him in practice, though, I would imagine.
Yeah. So that'll be great, though. It'll be a really good challenge for me. He's got phenomenal feet. He's huge. He's got a great stick. He can lay the lumber. I mean, he reminds me of almost like a lefty Tucker Durkin a little bit, like that mean streak kind of style. And and Tucker, everybody knows who Tuck is. So I think he's just going to do so well for us and provide a big spark and really just a huge edge for us, because he plays with that box style and that Canadian flair. And for us, I think that's going to be huge, because he's going to add a little oomph to us, and also adds a little bit of size and allows us to play a little bit better against those 2-headed monsters or 3-headed monsters that some of these teams have on attack.
We had Eli Gobrecht on this show last Tuesday, and we were joking about the man down kind of combinations, not even thinking about just regular 6-on-6 man down combinations. We might see Graham Hulsebos running out there with a short stick. And then it's just like the offensive guys on the other side should be horrified. Like, from what I've heard, what Graham Hulsebos brings to the table, both with a pull, without a pull, they should be scared. Just throw that out there for everybody else in the league. But then you also, like you said, Connor Fields, Ryan McNamara, Nate Solomon, and then Coach Bates owns the 5th overall college draft pick, as well as the 5th picks in rounds 2 and 3. So possibly more offensive talent set to join this Archers group ahead of the 2021 season. We will wait and see what Coach Bates does with those selections. And we've talked extensively on this show about all the offensive talent coming into the league through this draft. One of those guys being a guy you know very well in Mac O'Keefe, a former teammate of yours at Penn State, one of the best shooters and finishers in the game. And he was on the other end of a large majority of those assists that you were able to pile up over your college career. And really, the dilemma we continue to hear and talk about is that he is one of the best talents in this draft. Like, that's a no-brainer. And it warrants being one of those first players taken, but there's already so many lefty finishers in this league. I mean, we're seeing it firsthand with names like Mark Matthews, Kevin Crawley. They're still unsigned in the player pool. But then you look at it again, it's like, O'Keefe might be better than all of them. And it's not just those 2 guys still in the player pool, but like most of the lefty shooters in this league, arguably, I would say most of them. So a few of these head coaches might have to make a tough decision in what would be probably passing on him, because selecting him seems like a pretty easy choice. And then Coach Bates might even be included in that group and forced to make a decision on passing on him and selecting one of these other talented players in the pool. But what will Mac O'Keefe bring to a lucky PLL team, not just on the field, but what he brings to a locker room and then to a team culture?
Yeah, I actually just got a text from him.
He's listening to us right now, even though this isn't live. He's listening to us right now.
Mac will be the best in terms of lefties. Mac will be the best stretch shooter that's a lefty. I mean, there's the kids. I mean, in 2019, he was shooting the ball like 45%, and they were from like 16 yards out. Like you can't argue that. And Mac is a pure. I don't call him a shooter. I call him a scorer, because he's just one of those guys that I don't know how to describe it. he's just one of those guys that just the ball goes in the back of the net for him. Like he's confident in himself. And he can shoot the ball at such a clip that it's not necessarily his speed. I mean, he can shoot the crap out of the ball. It's more so, in my opinion, the way that I see it is his quick release, right? So if he's getting a skip pass across the top, the goalie's turning, and by the moment he sets his feet, the ball's on top of them, right? You're not going to react to that well. So, on field, I think, if anybody's overlooking him because he's not having as productive of a year, I mean, I think he's still averaging 3 or 4 a game, but as productive of a year, you got to look at what's going on around him a little bit. That's not to say that Penn State isn't talented at all. I think there's so much talent on that team that's, unfortunately it's towards the tail end of the season. I still think there's a lot left to be uncovered for them. But I think in general, Mac is just one of those guys. He's not going to bring, the loud personality to the locker room. He's a quiet dude. But he's one of those dudes that kind of just, sticks to himself in terms of game day stuff and all that, but, does not bring much drama to a locker room, does not bring, any antics or anything like that. He's low-key one of the most competitive dudes I've ever met. And I think people will be surprised to hear that because when you think of an off-ball scorer, you think of a guy who just right place, right time all the time, but you look at it the way that he is off the ground, the way that he rides. There's so much care from him. And I don't think that you get that from all attackmen, let alone all attackmen that can score like him. So, all in all, I mean, I could go on for hours about the guy, but he's been an incredible teammate and friend to me throughout our time together and still now. But I think also more importantly, I think he's just a guy that's, going to fit in anywhere that you put him, and his talents will be used on the field. You just got to find a way to use them.
Your team picks 5th overall. It doesn't look like Coach Bates will select O'Keefe after some of those additions he's made this offseason. But if I've learned anything over the past 2 years covering this league, is that whatever you think will happen, just expect, or the exact opposite probably will happen. So we will see how all of that unfolds. The Atlas have 4 picks in the first 11 selections, and I can't imagine O'Keefe is still available come pick 12 for Crum. And he's really one of a few solid attackmen ahead of this draft. Michael Sowers, Jared Bernhardt looking like 2 of the top prospects, Jeff T and Ryan Tierney, Jake Caraway, Ethan Walker, some of the other names that we should see taken at some point, probably early in this draft. Which one of these guys, or possibly someone that I didn't just mention right there, but who are you excited to see make that step up to the pro game?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Mike, just because Mike and I go back from our youth days and we train together in the off, or like in the winter, and text here and there. Obviously he's somebody who I'm excited to see make that next step because I think he's earned that right in a lot of ways. But I mean, Jared is. There isn't a defender in the country that can cover Jared Bernhardt right now. And that's just a fact. He is, and I've talked with, some Penn State guys, but also just guys who have defended him. His straightaway speed got better playing football this fall. And, he's
a scary thing to think.
Yeah. He's really just a gifted athlete. And, that Maryland team is really, really good right now. Just in general, Maryland's that right now, especially, they're just a team that doesn't make mistakes. Like they don't make dumb mistakes. They're buttoned up. They're in terms of their riding, their clearing, their X's and O's, right? They're not making stupid mistakes at all. You need to beat them straight up, and they will never beat themselves. And I think Jared kind of plays that way too. I think he's not a guy that's going to have dumb turnovers or anything like that. He lets the game kind of come to him. And I actually like that he's been a little bit more selfish this year. I think he was way too passive in years, at least in my opinion, in terms of his ability to dodge and create. I think he was really passive in his younger years. But he also had good guys on the right. He had like Connor Kelly and Rambo and, all these guys. But he's really come into an unbelievable player this year after he was already an unbelievable player. So, he's another guy. And then, you mentioned these other guys, and I mean, Jeff Teet's not even playing this year, and he's arguably one of the best players I've ever competed against. So, it's so stacked in that regard. And, I'm just really excited to be able to, have the opportunity to either suit up with or compete against a lot of these guys. Cause that's when you kind of learn a little bit about yourself, but also you learn some new tricks and stuff.
Handful of attackmen entering this draft. Not just attackmen, obviously very talented across the board. And another former teammate of yours at the Face-Off X, Gerard Arceri, looks like he'll have his name called most likely at some point during this upcoming draft as well. Dana Ressia on his early college draft big board has Arceri as his third best draw guy in the draft pool. There's a handful of teams in need of another face-off guy. Your team being one of them, and he's probably looking like a third or fourth round pick, so maybe available there towards the latter parts of the draft. Him coming into this league, what does he bring to the table?
Yeah, I mean, Jerry's a competitive dude. He's obviously talented as all hell, and one of those guys that works. I mean, he works really freaking hard at his craft, and it's one thing I always have respected from him. Extra weight room sessions, extra field sessions. He's really elevated that position, specifically at Penn State. I think he's done a great job in mentoring, the younger guys. I think that goes under the radar a lot of the time. And, he's obviously a phenomenal player. I think he's got decent offensive capability, which teams like in the PLL. You need to be able to go to the goal. And I think, it may not always be pretty, but he finds a way to the goal. He's also, played in big moments. I think that's a big thing that people need to look into in these drafts. Like, these playoff moments, like see how guys react, see how they play. I look at Gerard and going against TD against Yale in the semifinals. He showed a lot of freaking resilience in that game, and going down 10-1 against them, him losing every single face-off, to then clawing back and ending up, I think he ended up at like, a 40% clip or 50% clip that game. That says a lot about his ability to react to adversity. And, face-offs in this league are so crucial, but they're also, there's so much talent. So that might happen some games. And I think, coaches, in terms of what to look for, I think that's a great example of, the type of kid that he is, the last one doesn't necessarily mean that this one's going to go bad. So, I'm excited to see what he can do, and excited to hopefully have another PSU guy in the league.
From the few guys I've talked to, face-off guys, it's you got to have a short memory. You can't be – it's like the last one happened. It's like, all right, that happened. It's over. Move on to the next one. Arceri posting a 56% face-off clip over 8 games this season, 61% on his career. We will wait and see where he falls on draft night. But Grant, I've been trying over the last week or so to get some wind behind the sails for Coach Bates to make a move up in round 1 and secure Mr. TD. Looking at your team post-entry draft, that looks like the one glaring spot, but we will see. We will wait and see how the next week and a half unfolds ahead of the college draft. Hopefully a blockbuster move like that to get some people talking, but a handful of good face-off men available. We'll see if your team takes one of them. But speaking of Penn State, you're hosting Michigan tomorrow night. For everyone watching and listening, that is tonight at 5 p.m. Eastern on the Big Ten Network. Not exactly, as you were saying before, the season that you guys were hoping for. You sit at 2-6 right now, but this home game tonight against Michigan is really important because the last time these two teams met in Ann Arbor, Michigan won 14-12, but Michigan is also 2-6, so seeding ahead of the Big Ten tournament at stake here, trying to get a home playoff game for that first round if you can get the 4 seed. What does Penn State need to do to get this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody asks about X's and O's and what's going wrong and all this stuff. I don't think it has. I think it has very little to do with X's and O's. I think if we win the middle of the field, we'll win the game. So ride backs, ground balls, run outs, getting back on defense, stopping transit, like just little things that are just effort plays. Because if you look at our 2019 season and our success, and even in the 2020 season, obviously we had talent, but there was so much more that I think went into it. And I think if you look at guys that graduated over those 2 years, You've got a lot of guys that meant a lot to that locker room that graduated, and also that meant a lot to the team on game day. I look at a guy like Tommy Wright, who played for the Lizards last year, 3-year starter. And whenever the ball was on the ground, Tommy was on the ground. Whenever, the ball was on the ground, Robbie Black was on the ground. You got so many of these guys that I think just gave such an effort, and were taped together at the end of every game. And that's really what I'm hoping to see. I'm hoping just to see a phenomenal effort out of the guys, because I do think they have the talent. But in terms of our success as a team in 2019, it had very little to do with that. It had more to do with, all right, like, I'm willing to compete a little bit more than this team that we're going against today. So, I think that's a big aspect of it. I also think that, the more that we can, limit those transition opportunities and limit those unnecessary turnovers, that'll probably help in the long run. But truly, talking to both guys on the team and guys that I graduated with, Michigan is a talented team. But if you play 4 quarters against them, it's an easily winnable game. The issue is playing those 4 quarters is a little bit easier said than done. So that's my hope, and it's senior day for these guys. So my biggest hope for the game is Mac to break the record, and we all celebrate for him, and they get a win, and then they go in and host a home game for that first round of that Big Ten playoffs.
That is the plan, playing this tough Big Ten schedule here in 2021. Penn State hoping to get out of these last few weeks of the regular season and position themselves ahead of the Big Ten tournament. And then I'd imagine to get an NCAA tournament bid, they would need to win the conference. So we'll watch to see what the Nittany Lions can do over these next few weeks. Grant, I want to thank you so much for joining us, my man. I heard you're keeping the ankle socks around for 2021. Was that an easy decision? I saw you getting some pressure over it.
We got them, bro. We got them.
There we go.
There you go. We're good to go. Yeah, no, I'm keeping them. Apparently Hasek's an ankle sock guy, so we'll see it. I never knew wearing a piece of clothing could get so much buzz for that when it was. I just think they're more comfortable in the summer. I think they're a more comfortable sock. My legs get sweaty.
Hey, valid argument. Very valid argument. I would have to agree with that. Grant, appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. Grant Ament and the Archers ready to get after it in 2021, opening the season June 5th against the Atlas. Take it easy, my man. Hope to talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate it, man.